Welcome to the Howler podcast. I'm Chelsea.
I'm Mary.
And we are officially back for season 2. Woo, 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 woo. So we hope you enjoyed listening to the Howler live recording, our last episode, which was truly so fun. I think Mary and I, we dreamed this up and we weren't sure if it was going to be possible. And then we made it happen, just like we made this podcast happen. And it was just great having a live audience, feeling that energy and that exchange, and having so many PAC members on the podcast, sharing their stories.
Yes, we have lots of good clips from that episode.
So we are now back with season 2. Not too much is going to change. We'll still be interviewing our senior leaders here at Arctic Wolf so that you can feel even more connected to our leadership and to the PAC as a whole. We'll still have some fun spotlights, some roundtable episodes, all that jazz. So We're looking forward to this next season of hopefully growth and fun.
Well, I mean, it's kind of timely next season because it is fall.
Yes.
Excited for a new chapter. We're changing things up a tiny bit. So looking forward to how that impacts the conversations we have and what we get to share. Okay, so Chelsea, new season. How do you want to grow or be in this season?
I think for me, summer, I didn't do that much traveling, but it felt like I was traveling all the time. And I love to travel, don't get me wrong. But I think I'm really looking forward to, in the fall, just getting back into a routine, working out, eating homemade meals, just those types of things that when you're doing them obviously seem like a chore or a pain, and all you're looking forward to is the next trip or the next something fun. But you always want what you don't have. So now that I've been go, 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 I just really want to be more intentional with I've fallen off on journaling. I haven't been reading as much. I know I'm not really doing as many of the things that I know make me the best version of myself. So I want to get back into doing those things in the fall so that I can set myself up for a really great start to 2025.
I love that. And actually, it feels like an appropriate time to check in on your New Year's resolution, which longtime listeners of the podcast were here for the New Year's resolution chat. But I think yours was grow through this, or
mine was the person you want to be is on the other side of this moment. Basically telling me to take a breath before I react, or I'm always working on my patience. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I've really been as thoughtful around that intention as I have in previous years. I actually hadn't thought about it until you just mentioned it. So that just means, which is okay. I'm not mad at myself about it. I think that just means there's opportunity for me to, one, now start to live that out. We don't have to wait till 2025. We can start now.
Yeah.
And two, maybe it carries over into 2025.
Totally. Well, actually, when you were talking about your little fall reset of getting back into your habits, it felt a little bit like the you that you want to be is on the other side of this moment. And in this moment, you're intentionally projecting those things that make you the best you.
Okay. What about you? What's your intention for fall, or kind of what you're looking forward to in this season of life?
For those, most of you know that I am in our Eden Prairie office with Chelsea, but I'm actually relocating tomorrow to our San Antonio office. So I'm excited for a blank page and the beginning sentences of a new chapter, and I just want to be open to new and whatever could come. So I'll say that. I just want to be open.
Well, I'm so excited for your new chapter. Obviously sad that I won't see you every day in the office, but I am still grateful I get to work with you every day, just virtually.
Yes.
And even just from hearing you talk about this journey, I feel like you already are setting yourself up to have like such a great experience because you're being so intentional about it. You're staying open. You're like letting yourself feel all the things. So I think that's all you can do. So
Yeah.
I just like can't wait to hear about it once
Thanks.
you're like in it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Well, next podcast, I'll probably be
Yeah.
live from Texas so I can report back then. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm so excited just for it's our environments shape our habits and our day-to-day experiences. So I'm excited for how a new environment will shape
Hmm.
this season of my life.
Okay. And then quickly, what about your New Year's resolution?
Well, it's funny you say that I think you were like, you couldn't remember because I also am like, oh gosh, but I did just think of it.
Okay.
And it's kind of fun because while I can't remember it, mine has like subconsciously led me this year. And I think if this is what you remember, I think I said I was going to get in the game.
Yeah,
And
you're
we're
getting
going
off
on
of
the
the sideline.
sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did come off my leave of absence. So I'm back in school,
Hmm.
and I did some traveling. Not that that's getting off the silence for me because I do that on a regular occasion or somewhat regular occasion. But I mean, I'm moving to Texas, so
Hmm.
we're getting in the game. We're living, we're exploring, we're dreaming, we're evolving.
Hmm. For
So,
sure.
well, it hasn't been at the forefront. I think subconsciously it was in there guiding me.
100%. I mean, even just you starting school, like I know that was the big like
Yeah.
impetus for this whole thing. And then I mean, you're picking up your life and like starting a new adventure. Like that is the game. I don't know what other game there is other than the game of life. You know what I mean?
For real.
So
Here we are.
we definitely are living that out. Um, okay, well, if you're listening, might be a good time for you to think about what your 2024 New Year's resolution was. No shame if you haven't achieved it, but we've still got 4 months or 3 months. Sorry, it's October. We've
Yeah.
still got 3 months before 2025, so it's never too late.
And a new school year. I've actually heard that goals are more effective in September than January because there's something about the school
Mm,
year cadence
mm-hmm.
and maybe less pressure and expectation of New Year's Day that
For
makes it
sure.
effective.
For
So
sure. Well, like Mary said, it is fall, and with fall comes Halloween, specifically in North America. And we have our Halloween tradition that we have been doing here at Arctic Wolf for quite a while. So, really looking forward to all the costumes, the trick or treating, all the fun things that come along with Halloween. And so our guest this week is actually known for his really fun costumes. So it's just the perfect person to be on the October episode.
today we are excited to sit down with Lane Roush. He's our Chief Technical Customer Officer. Lane Roush has led the Arctic Wolf Sales Engineering Organization since 2016. He brings 20 plus years of IT and security experience to the team and has been a driving force in our sales enablement product channel and go to market strategy. Before joining Arctic Wolf, Lane was a principal architect in sales engineering at Code 42, where he supported large enterprise customers and helped identify and build the multitude of security go to market use cases that became a new solution offering. He also held sales and engineering roles at EMC focused on large enterprise customers across many verticals. He began his career as an IT and security practitioner for organizations in healthcare, energy, and real estate.
Hi, Lane. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, we were just talking before we hit record, and Lane has listened to some of the podcasts before, so it's great to have an active listener on the podcast as well. So this should be fun. So hopefully you kind of know the agenda For our conversation, we always start with like a fun game, whether it be Would You Rather or trivia, just something we know about the person. And Mary and I were chatting. This is going to be released in October, so it's our Halloween episode. And we immediately thought back to your amazing Halloween costume last year. I think you were the first person to like take a picture and put your picture on the whiteboard. And we were like, okay, well, let's do some Halloween this or that, just to like get us in the spooky mood. So does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Before we do the this or that, we've decided, Lane, that you are a big Halloween fan? Because the other thing we know about your costume is that it was part of a greater like family coordinated costume. So are we wrong in that you're a big Halloween fan, or was it just last year you went all out?
Yeah, no, for some reason, my wife and I just have always loved Halloween, right? I've always liked trying to find like different, unique ideas. So yeah, when her and I used to dress up all the time for Halloween, and then once we had kids, we kind of brought them into the loop. And we're getting to the point now where our oldest doesn't always want to be exactly what we want to be, so we're kind of going to probably lose some of that. But yeah, we've done a lot of different coordinated family costumes over the years. I think probably one of the better ones is we did like the little army green men, like the little green, and my wife made the whole costume. It was awesome. I mean, she even had like the spray painted like feet stands that you go on. I mean, it was really cool. I'll have to share that picture sometime. It was awesome.
Well, tell the listener too about your family costume this year, because it was intense.
You have to remind me. I don't even remember what my costume was this year.
But it was like all of you were like an injured sports player.
Oh yeah, we did zombies this year. That was the theme. So we've done skeletons, and we've done trolls. We've kind of done a lot of themes. Yeah, that's right. This year we did zombies. So it was actually really fun. One of my boys was like a hockey zombie. My wife was just a momsy, right? So she was like in a mom outfit that was a zombie. And the best part is my littlest. He's he got a little spooked. So we tried to get him to be a zombie, and he just wouldn't do it. So we have our family picture where we're all zombies, and he's just a pickle.
So funny. Wait, I have to know, since this is kind of a thing between you and your wife, what was the first couples costume that you did together?
Oh, geez.
Like your first Halloween you're dating, what was?
Oh, geez, I'm trying to remember. I think I'd actually have to go back and look, but for her and I, couples costumes have always been like like some sort of theme. I know for me, like how would I give you some of my favorite costumes I've done? I think some of the ones that I've done have been kind of fun. Like my favorite one I think I ever did was Goth Brooks. So I dressed up gothic, but I was a country singer. That one was really fun. That was a good one. And so yeah, I think I don't know. My wife and I'm trying to remember some good ones. They've always been like playing off each other. Gosh, I'd have to go back and look. I just can't remember.
No worries. Yeah. That's so fun though. I'm gonna need to consult you when I need a creative Halloween costume.
Oh, now you have Google. Google helps everything, right? So
now we have ChatGPT.
Oh, even better.
Okay, well, perfect. Because I also was curious what your favorite costume you've done. So is Goth Brooks up there?
No, I would say my favorite is probably the little green army men. That was just really spectacular. That one was really fun. I know the first one we did as a family was when my first kid was born, and he was 1.5 maybe, and we were gnomes. So we dressed up as gnomes, which was really fun. Yeah, I'd say we just love doing themed costumes. I think it's kind of fun. The kids enjoy it too. I think that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Get the bags of candy,
Okay, well, this is a perfect segue into the this or that edition. I'm assuming you know how to play this or that. Just pick one, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
The first one is about costumes. So, a silly costume or an elaborate costume?
Probably elaborate. I kind of like the idea of like really having to put time and energy into things and then having the outcome.
Okay, aliens or ghosts?
Well, I don't really believe in ghosts, and I think it'd be silly not to think that there is life on other planets. I'm not sure they've ever visited us, so I'd be more scared of ghosts because they would show up, but I think aliens are more realistic.
Okay. I love the like thought process and rationalization of
Clearing that out.
yeah. Okay. Pumpkin spice or apple cider?
Apple cider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't hate pumpkin spice, but definitely apple cider.
Vampire or werewolf?
I was a vampire for like 5 years in a row when I was a kid.
Okay.
But I think werewolves are kind of cooler.
Okay. Well, and Arctic wolf, I feel like we gotta lean towards the wolf trend, right?
That makes sense.
Okay. Halloween candy. Do we want sour or chocolate?
Oh, that's really tough. I have a pretty bad sweet tooth. Depends on the chocolate. So I'd probably say like sour, like fruity type candy. I would probably choose that first. But I love chocolate too. So that's a really hard choice.
So choice over here.
I would do sour fruity candy.
Okay. All right, last few. You're in a horror movie. Run or hide?
Fight's not an option.
Not on this one.
Okay. I'd probably run.
Since you selected run, if there's a group, are we staying together or are we splitting up?
Ooh, that's a good question. Gosh, of course, it all is about the threat and who's coming after you. And I'd probably say stay together. I think you're going to be stronger together, most likely.
Stronger together. Wolf. Okay, last one. Monster Mash or Thriller?
Thriller.
Thriller is obviously a masterpiece, but when I wrote this one, I had a moment of like, but the Monster Mash is a bop.
You know Mash is awesome. It's just hard not to choose Thriller.
I know.
It's also got a great dance with it, right? So
that's true. Yeah. Okay, well, that was fun. Thank you for playing along. We are glad that you have some interest in Halloween. We were like, this may take an interesting turn if he's like, oh no, I just dress up because I'm forced to.
I do like Halloween. It's a good holiday. It's a fun one.
Well, now that we're all warmed up, we're feeling silly and spooky, let's get into the serious questions.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so we always like to start these questions with learning a little bit about your journey, like who you were as a little boy. So can you tell us maybe like what did little Lane want to be when he was, what did he want to be when he grew up? And then kind of like your journey to Arctic Wolf, what initially made you interested in IT and then transitioning to sales engineering. Just take us on a journey.
Okay. This could either be really long or really short, so I'll just put it in the middle. So, I'm a pretty curious person, so I like to know how things work. So, for me, when I was little, I'll never forget. I would take broken VCRs or broken irons, or sometimes they weren't broken, and I would like to take them all apart. And I was always under the impression that I'd be able to put them back together, and I don't think I ever put any of them back together properly. So, but I did love taking things apart. I loved seeing the inner workings of things, and so that curiosity really came out early on. And for me, it was not a huge fan of like blood or like the medical side or the body. So it wasn't like I was curious about that side. It was always like mechanical. And then I started learning on computers. So when I was growing up in elementary school, we had like the Apple IIes with kind of the green screen and the 5.25-inch floppies. And I always wanted to just play on them. I just always wanted to be on the computer. No matter what was happening, I was like, can we just go to the computer lab, please? And I didn't even care if I was playing Oregon Trail or not. I just wanted to be typing on it. And so kind of I built a really strong curiosity in how computers work, what they were doing. And then in my 7th grade year, I had a cousin that was much older than me, and he was pretty into computers. And he kind of helped us build our first one as a family. It had, Windows 95. It was a Pentium 133, and when I got that thing, I just loved it. I tried to do everything. I ruined it multiple times. I had to get it fixed multiple times because I was doing things that I was just trying to figure out how it worked. And I'll never forget the first time I tried to get on the internet. That was back when there was just dial-up. So I remember getting it all hooked up, and it was like 11:30 at night. And I'd been on this computer for probably like 6 hours trying to just figure things out. And I finally got it to where my modem was going to dial, and it did the and and it was so loud in the house that I immediately got so scared. So I just reached off and shut the computer off.
Oh no! After all that work, and then you were like, "Oh no, I don't want to get in trouble."
Yeah, well, it was just so loud, and I'd never heard it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do?" I had no idea what to expect. And so, kind of going through 7th and 8th grade, and then going into high school, I just got really proficient with computers, right? So we had like Macs in our computer lab at school. I learned how to do a lot of really fun things on them. And then for me, it was I just was the computer guy, right? And I just loved it. And so going all through high school, I'll never forget it. It was coming up to be my senior year, maybe beginning of senior year. And I remember my dad being like, "All right, what college are we going to? We got to get going." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to college." He was like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just going to work on computers the rest of my life, and I don't need to go to college for that." And that was one of those moments where I think we had some really big disagreement. So I graduated high school. I went through a Microsoft certification course for about 6 months. Went and got a job out of that program. Was supposed to be like a 2-week internship at a healthcare company in Montana. I was there for 8.5 years. Now, during my time there, I did go to college and finish my degree, or got a college degree while I worked there. But I left there to come to Montana, or come to Minnesota from Montana, because I'd met my wife long distance. We were long distance for 3.5 years. Came here, and then I worked at a company, didn't last long there, worked at another company, and I didn't last long there. It just wasn't a good culture fit, but I learned a lot. Went to another company, and I learned a ton. And while I was there, I got introduced to the sales engineering position through one of my great friends and mentors. His name's Dave Payne, super good dude. So I was there. I learned a bunch about sales engineering. Started doing presentations at like users groups on some of the technology that they were selling. And he was like, "Hey man, you should come be a sales engineer." And I was like, "Oh, maybe." And that was like a 9-month dance. And I did. I took a job at EMC as a sales engineer, was there for a couple years, learned a ton, went to Code 42 for a few years. And then when Nick ended up being at Arctic, he was like, "Hey, we need some help building a sales engineering team." And, for me, it was, we're in security. It's a SaaS model. I get to build an sales engineering team, and that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. There's a lot of stuff inside there, but
yeah,
that's in a nutshell.
Amazing. You're such a great storyteller. Yeah. I have all these visuals in my head. I can see little Lane in school, teacher, can we just go to the computer lab? And taking stuff apart. I'm sure your parents loved and hated that curiosity of we have all this broken stuff all over.
I was getting a visual of your mom rounding the corner and seeing this appliance she really needed to use torn apart and being like, "Oh, again."
Yes, I know. And so many of the stories that I want to tell, I just probably won't tell, but it's I just learned a lot through life. So it was a fun time, and I'm sure my mom did love and hate me a lot of times.
Well, it's interesting that, Chelsea, you say you're such a good storyteller, because I was thinking about that too, Lane, when you mentioned Dave Payne. I also was at Code 42 when he was there, and I remember him explaining the concept of a sales engineer to me. And we can edit this out if it's offensive, but he was like, it's kind of like, and I've not seen Star Trek, but like the main character in Star Trek with like the black hair that's kind of matted to his head. Is that Spock or something?
I think it is, but now, yeah, I'm not a huge Star Wars or Star Trek fan, but yeah.
Anyways, he was just trying to say like it's like your really nerdy, technical, smart person like mashed up with like your really social, outgoing,
Yeah, like
person.
an extrovert.
Yeah, well, yeah. So he was like, it's kind of you have like your like really social, extroverted, like great with people person mashed with like your technical. Like it's a really unique blend of having both the technical and like the extroverted socialness. And I feel like we see that already in the storytelling, and just like. But I guess the question is, you love taking things apart, but were you also kind of life of the party, or were you always like a social kid? Was that a part of your?
Yeah, so I think I was probably, I could kind of fit into most situations. So I think that, whether that's because I'm a Gemini or just that's my personality, I don't know. But I definitely am more of a chameleon. But I definitely wasn't the guy that was like the life of the party, but I definitely was at a lot of the parties. And I would say for me, it was more about just making people feel as comfortable as they possibly could. For me, it was like, I just like to be friends with most people. Like I don't have a lot of like negative, thoughts. I don't know. I just enjoy funny people. I enjoy smart people. I enjoy being around good storytellers. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I was the guy that when you walk in, it's like, oh, like, how like those athletes sometimes are like, oh, that was not me. But I definitely knew how to interact with almost every type of person growing up through high school as well as through my college age years, not necessarily college.
Well, I was going to say, when you talk about like you're the kind of person where you always want to make feel comfortable, or you want to make people feel comfortable, I think about like the sales engineering role and how you all partner with your sales counterpart to go into meetings and really help the potential customer feel comfortable and confident and understanding the product. So
yeah, yeah, which I think all starts with transparency, level setting, definitions, right? So it's more of a very logical approach versus an emotional approach. It's like if two people are arguing about something or they don't understand something, then you have to get the definitions proper before you can have the argument. And I think that, and so for me, it was more of just, I kind of am a open, truthful, transparent person. Like you can kind of, you get what you get with me a little bit, which I like. Sometimes that's not amazing, but that is sort of the way it is, and I think that helps people get off edge, right? I think it's just it makes people feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I love what you just said about like you have to make sure you have the definitions when you're correct when you're having these arguments, because a lot of times so many arguments stem from like people misunderstanding each other. Like we're not even arguing the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely, I love that little. I was gonna make a joke earlier, a couple jokes. You've got so many gems, but the time has passed. But I love how you have really turned being a Gemini into a positive trait of like having multiple personalities. You're like, it really works for me. Like I get along with everyone. Oh, it's amazing. I love it.
That's funny.
Okay, well, we've been talking a little bit about, what it's like to be a sales engineer, kind of the traits that the role calls for. Could you take us into a day in the life as the chief technical customer officer and maybe like sprinkle in again kind of what the sales engineering team is doing, what sorts of tasks and projects is your larger team working on? I know no day is the same, but maybe just some highlights.
Yeah, no problem. And the nice thing for me is I don't think we're really in a traditional setup when it comes to where sales engineering normally lives within a company. I think we've been pretty blessed, the team that I'm able to be part of and lead, in that we obviously work directly, very tightly with sales, but we're not necessarily just a function of sales. And I think that's not always normal. So for me, it's been really, really nice to be able to have really solid leadership, a really solid team. So then over the course of the last couple years, I've been able to divert some of my specific energy and attention into more strategic and longer term areas for our company, while they've been able to continue, making sure we're solutioning things properly for customers, making sure we're solving their business needs, supporting our sales peers. So I've been very lucky to be able to have kind of both purviews, that's not always the case within companies. So a day in the life for me is obviously making sure that anything we do, either on the call it the pre-sales side, meaning we're trying to help customers understand the value prop of coming to Arctic Wolf, or after a customer has become a customer of Arctic Wolf, how we make sure to maintain that in concert with our customer success peers and our security services peers. And then for me, it's like every day, it's like sometimes you're working on the business through like strategy and long term, and sometimes you're working in the business, making sure that the customers, our product teams, our R&D teams are all aligned really with one view, which is through the customer, and in our case also the partner experience. And I think that's what's really important, is we just don't lose the view of like why we exist as a company, which that is a really hard thing to maintain as you not only get bigger, but I would say more sophisticated with more capabilities. Sometimes it's easy to make assumptions or draw conclusions to the wrong spots. And I think just regrounding ourselves through customer and partner lens is always a really important thing. And I think we at Arctic Wolf, across all of our business units, do that really well. But that's a really important part of my job and my focus, is to just make sure that we're not necessarily losing that, but we're thinking of it all the time in our forward-looking strategies as well as our current existing business.
I love what you said about sometimes you're working on the business and sometimes you're working in the business. And I'm curious, as a senior leader, I'm sure there are times where it feels like you're just in the business. You're just like in the weeds, and you maybe don't have time to be as high level or strategic as you want to be, because we're putting out fires, or we're solving problems and challenges. So how do you manage your time and prioritize so that you can ensure you do have that time to think high level?
Yeah, it's really funny. Somebody told me this the other day, which is the most important thing is always the most important thing. So if you have a foundation of things that are important to you, regardless of what else is happening around you, that is still the most important thing. And so when you're doing prioritization of your time, which is really what you're talking about, you have to make sure you keep that lens in play. And so I will tell you, I have been very fortunate. I have a very strong leadership team, and I have a very strong team. So I get involved in the business when I need to be involved in the business, meaning the priorities a lot of times are kind of already set, which is kind of nice. Meaning I don't necessarily have to do the daily prioritization. You kind of know. Again, if you build a strong culture of what we've done, transparency and owning the outcome and being stronger, you kind of know where you need to get into the business versus when you have time to work on the business.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue, because we want to talk a little bit about our culture. You just rattled off several of our culture tenets and principles, but one of them being that you mentioned, own the outcome. So how do you live that out at Arctic Wolf? How do you see others live it out? Do you have any examples here? What does it mean to you, and how do you see it play out at Arctic Wolf?
Yeah, so this one for me is, it's really hard to own an outcome that isn't defined. So again, it comes back to the clarity conversation. And I have always lived on the edge of you should set the realistic expectations based on the actual deliverables you can deliver. So I don't think it's a good idea to try to set yourself up for success in a way that is unrealistic. And so for me, I think the first thing that you have to do to really own the outcome is you have to understand what the outcome is that you're trying to own. The second part is, a lot of times in business, I'd say this is probably in personal as well, is you identify a problem, an opportunity, and you talk about it, and everybody thinks it's a really good idea or it's a good thought, and then there's no ownership. Like nobody, so it's who takes ownership. And so I think even making sure you understand what you're supposed to own and then not supposed to own, and then holding yourself and then frankly others accountable to make sure you have kind of that high do to say ratio, which I know is a big part of what we do at Arctic Wolf. And so in my world, it's not just about like showing up and doing the job. It's about understanding what are you supposed to be doing, what can you do, more, and then is it your responsibility or is it not your responsibility? And if it is, then you should take it to the next level. And then, so that for me is like how I think about it is just make sure you know what you're owning, which helps actually getting to the outcome that you're trying to solve. And I think sometimes we miss that very foundational and basic requirement.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so true. It's like sometimes we just skip to the action without being like, where are we going here?
That's right. Or even understanding, is it even feasible? Is it possible? Like just questioning in general, like, is this a good thing for me or my team or people to spend time on or not? And so, and I think you asked me if there were specifics. So this one's really hard for me because I'll be honest with you, we functionally have teams in our security services, our CSM organization that I see pick up the ball and own this outcome every single day. Like it happens day in, day out. I see it in our product and R&D orgs when they have to step up in certain spots to really help and make sure that not only you're helping customers or partners, like they're doing it. In my team, I see it all the time. So like to take like one thing or one person, it's a little tough just because I see it all the time. I will tell you though, like for specifics, we acquired a SOAR company. We did that because we knew that we had to make our teams a little more efficient, but more importantly, we also wanted to help drive outcomes to customers, right? We wanted to be able to say, not only did we find something bad, we want to try to stop and enact it. And I would say the teams that are delivering on those, what we call response actions, I mean, they're killing it. They're releasing new ones almost every month or two. Like they're just doing a great job. And I think it helps the broader Arctic Wolf, but more importantly, it really does help the customer. So that's one example, but that's not one person, right? I mean, I could give you hundreds of owning the outcome examples, but that is that's a good one, I think.
Yeah, well, shout out to that was the Revelstoke acquisition, right?
It was.
Shout out to our lowrider pack. I know that's what they call themselves these days. But I think it's cool that you just can list example after example after example or people that come to mind because I think it does speak to how special the culture we have is here because everybody is so intentional to your point, like have that high say do ratio. We don't just say that we own the outcome. We don't just say that we're going to be accountable and execute. Like we do it at scale.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love watching it.
Keeping the culture conversation going, want to talk a little bit about our mission here at Arctic Wolf. So one, what makes you most excited about our mission to end cyber risk? And then what is your personal mission, like professional mission? And then how does that help? You can share your personal mission as well too. But your personal professional mission and how does that help us like reach our collective goal?
Yeah, so it's really funny. So one of the reasons like I love not only our mission, but I think our company and our space and what we do is like what we do has real intrinsic value, right? And so, I've worked at jobs where it's like, oh, great, we made websites go faster. So somebody could maybe search better, or maybe a real estate agent can make more money. That's fine, that's great. But I really started my IT career in healthcare. And it was really awesome to know that, we did XYZ project and now we have less drug interactions and we actually saved people's lives, right? So for me, there was like this thing coming back to security, which was we functionally are helping companies do something that they cannot do themselves, even if they want to. Now, does that mean we're perfect? No way. But does that mean that they're better with us? Absolutely. And so I really do enjoy this idea that like, not only do I get to have fun and work in the tech and understand it and have a great team, but we are actually helping people. And that's been regardless if it was our ending cyber risk mission or even when I first started at Arctic Wolf, like it's always been that. And so I for me personally, this idea of helping customers legitimately mitigate risk, reduce risk impact when it does happen, and then helping them transfer, like for me, that actually like has like a real like, oh, I'm actually doing something that is meaningful, which I do enjoy. It also helps you get through the hard times, right? Because not everything is perfect and rosy, right? And I think that's okay. I would say my personal mission. I blend work and family life quite a bit. I have my whole life. I think for me, I get a ton of goodness out of my family, and I get a ton of goodness out of work. And I think the way that I'm going to help kind of just continue ending cyber risk and making this world better is I probably can't use the word, so I'll do it the opposite. I'm going to try to raise good humans. So I believe that if you raise good humans or you try to contribute, I do believe that that can help the broader good in the world, which at the end of the day, I think you cannot end cyber risk without people. So yes, we have technology. Yes, we have a great platform, but you still need people at the end of the day. So for me, I just think that making sure that we have good humans that are thinking about things in a way that isn't just about themselves. I don't know. I think that's a pretty good way to end cyber risk, in my opinion.
That was great. We're going to take a quick pause right now to hear a security win from one of our security services pack members.
Great. Hi, my name is Brent Larson. I am a security engineer for and team lead here in our concierge security department at Arctic Wolf. The goal of our department is to protect and delight our customers. To achieve that, we work to fine-tune the Arctic Wolf tooling and services to each customer environment. So beyond that, we also regularly meet with our customers to provide best practice guidance and to run various assessments based off of the visibility the Arctic Wolf products give to us. All of that said, I did want to share a case where one of our clients, with managed detection and response, the service allowed faster action on a hacking attempt from a skilled threat actor. So we have this customer. About 2 months ago, they almost had their worst day. It could have been ransomware, it could have been asset destruction. We're not sure what the end goal was. But with the Arctic Wolf managed detection and response service, it was well deployed on the organization assets and services. However, they did have a blind spot. They had a bring your own device policy that allowed anybody to log in from any device from anywhere, really, as long as they had those proper credentials. Furthermore, they did not have enforced multi-factor authentication. So it turns out at some time, one of their domain administrators logged in on a compromised endpoint. By that we mean the endpoint likely had a virus or had malware of some kind on it, and it was not managed by our customer. It was somebody's home device or maybe even a public device at a library or something of that nature. What this means is a threat actor immediately had administrator credentials with that successful login. So shortly after this, we did see a suspicious login from a country that was not on the customer's approved list. So this triggered the first alert out to their team. We said, hey, this admin user logged in from suspicious country XYZ. This does not look right. Please investigate. Let us know if you need assistance. Very shortly after that, we started seeing what we referred to as secondary indicators of compromise. So usually if it is a real world event, an actual hacker, an actual threat actor, they don't just do one thing, right? They'll come in the network and they'll try multiple things in short succession to gain access to various systems. So we saw this starting to happen. We saw network vulnerability scanning, we saw AD auditing tools, we saw DC sync attempts. We also saw local account discovery attempts, among many other things. I'm not going to go into detail on what each of those are, but needless to say, none of them are expected, and all of them are suspicious. So we sent out various tickets to the client. We got them on the phone, started walking them through getting things fixed up, and all of this happened within the span of about 90 minutes. This kind of attack is not new. We see this kind of thing all the time In this case, because of that MDR visibility, even though we didn't have access to that initial bring your own device appliance, as soon as the threat actor was in their environment where MDR was watching, we caught them. So we caught them really quick. Customer was able to isolate systems and unjoin their critical production systems from the domain. Ultimately, we worked to prevent the production of this company from being taken down. This customer still had a lot to do afterwards, right? Post-breach, they had a lot of lessons to work through with their lessons learned report. They're looking at updating their BYOD policy. They're looking at a full audit of systems to ensure full visibility, and a handful of other actions as well. But regardless, without Arctic Wolf MDR, nearly all of that activity I mentioned would have been missed, right? Because they didn't have other tools that would do that for them, and so they probably would have actually had their worst day with production being taken offline. In this case, Arctic Wolf was able to limit impact and keep production running.
For sure. I love everything you just said. Going back to what excites you about working here at Arctic Wolf and just the inherent intrinsic
intrinsic. You got it.
Try to say inherent intrinsic. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Say it 3 times fast. The intrinsic value of our mission, and knowing that what you're doing when you're coming to work is making the world a better place. You are out there trying to protect people. I'm curious, going back to, again, younger Lane, who is interested in tech, and you mentioned too, your first job with the hospital, again, had that intrinsic. Oh my gosh.
You got it. Intrinsic. We got it.
Intrinsic.
We're going to have to do a warm-up, Betty bought some butter, but the butter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I got to get the face muscles warmed up. Intrinsic. You also knew you were helping people, was the point. So going back when you were younger and you saw and you were so interested and curious in technology, do you remember, did you see technology as this tool that could help the world and help people and be, we always like to say the great equalizer, or was it just pure curiosity?
Yeah, I would actually say I was a little more selfish back then. Right? I don't think I had as much empathy. I don't think I had as much understanding of the world. So I think I'd be lying to say oh yeah, I've kind of always felt this way, because I don't think that's true. But I think over time, as you work in a field, and for me, IT has obviously been the field I've worked in my whole life, you start seeing the impact, right? You start seeing the outcomes that technology can drive. And it just happened to be that in a healthcare environment, it was very immediate, right? It was very real, because it was, patient's health, patient's experience. That helped, versus it being, again, something oh, sweet, that website just loads way faster, right? And so I think I was able to short circuit some of this in a quicker time frame. But when I was young, I was just more I loved it. I loved the immediate satisfaction and the gratification of oh, I built a web page and I hit refresh and then it shows up. This is so cool, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think I grew that mindset over time.
Well, related, it's cool you talking about as you've grown throughout your life and developing empathy and developing servant leadership and thinking of others in how you do your work in tech. Mm-hmm. Let's chat about leadership, and along those same lines, how has your leadership philosophy changed throughout your career?
Yeah, so leadership, you don't have to manage people to be a good leader, right? And I think everybody has probably said that many times, so probably cliche, but it's real. And I think for me, I think, again, defining leadership, I think, is important first. And for me, I always liken leadership in the definition to, I would never ask somebody to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And for me, that's just inherent in sort of the way that I've operated my leadership case, or I guess presence, if you will. And so that's that has not necessarily grown. That has been something that's been inherent in me my whole life. Like I would never be the kid that's like, you should try to go jump off that, roof and see what happens. No, like for me, it was more like, no, I'm not going to ask anybody to jump in and do that unless I'm willing to do it. And that's just sort of how I've always been. But I would say the way that I've really, over the course of time, there's been two main things for me around leadership. One, I realized very quickly how important it is to bring on the right people from a management perspective. Like you have to hire the right people, and then you have to give them autonomy. So if you can't do those two things, it's going to be really hard. And I will tell you, one thing that I did not realize that I was going to love about management was I love recruiting. Like I love hiring people. It was something for me that I didn't realize I liked. I didn't realize it was even something I was good at. And I just was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I did learn that over time, that you have to hire the right people. You don't just put people in to just put people in. You have to hire the right people, and then you have to let them do the job that you ask them to do. That's difficult for somebody like me that likes to make sure that everything is going to be the way it's supposed to be, but that's not the way this works. And then the other thing that I've learned over time, and this is not necessarily directly related to leadership or management, it's more directly related to like emotional intelligence, which is I'm what you would consider somebody that likes to be in control. And I learned not quickly, I would say very slowly, that I will not be able to manage or change or control everything around me. And that doesn't mean, though, that you just give up. And that doesn't mean you can't control anything, because there is one constant that you can control regardless of the situation, good or bad, which is how you react to that change and how you respond. And that is something that I think it takes work for a lot of people. But I have definitely learned that over the course of time, is that change is almost always for the better. Almost always, not always. But really it comes down to how you respond and how you react to whatever situation is in front of you. And I just think that's something that any good leader or somebody that's trying to be an aspiring manager or leader really needs to understand is things are not going to always go your way. And when they are going your way, it's still important to respond the right way.
Going back to what you were sharing around the importance of like hiring the right people and having the right team, it got me thinking. I know in my previous experiences hiring and leading a team, a lot of times the right people to me were like people that I immediately clicked with, and like we thought the same and maybe had similar experiences. So I'm curious, like, what if you have any like tools or watch outs for yourself that you could share with other people of like ensuring that you're hiring like people that have different thought processes that work a little bit different, so that we have obviously diversity of thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, I have kind of two core tenets. That's it. So I don't really care. I honestly, like, yes, background and history matter, and like where you've been and experience matter. At least for me, I think the two things are you have to be smart. Like you have to be able to be curious and ask questions, and you have to be able to retain and articulate. Like it's because it's really hard, especially as a sales engineer, not to be able to be curious and retain and ask questions and learn. Like it's just really hard to do the job. So that for me is a high degree of aptitude, like is really important. The second part for me is, you probably can't swear, you have to have a lot of passion. You have to care. You have to care. Mm-hmm. If you have those two things, you're probably going to be pretty successful. And so regardless of background or where you came from or thoughts or views or whatever, if you have those two things, like you're probably going to be in the right spot. So those have just been kind of two core tenets for me. And you can judge those up front, but not really. Like you won't really know. You won't really know until somebody is in the seat and kind of doing the job. So I think it's okay to give people chances. I think it's important to understand like the risks. So no different than if you're going to make a life decision, a pros and cons list is a pretty good idea, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I've done that over the course of my hiring career. So yeah, I don't know if that's directional, but that's how I think about it. And you know, it's not necessarily like, you know, can we go out and be best friends on the weekend? I don't like, sure, but like that's not really what it is. For me, it's just about, can you do the job and will you be successful?
Well, no, yeah, I think that's helpful because I think it's just natural as humans, like we're all drawn towards some like a particular personality or skill set or whatever. So I'm always thinking of like tools or things that other people are considering while they're in the hiring process. So I love those two, like curiosity and passion, which again, like you don't really know, but I think you can kind of suss that out in an interview and with, you know, intentional questions.
Yeah, you know what? It's really funny. One of the things that I've done probably later in my hiring sprees, I don't do a lot of the question asking. Like I expect the person to ask me a lot of questions, and I think you can gain a lot of insight about the types of questions people ask you about the role. You can really understand like how excited are they about it, how much research have they done, what areas of like expertise don't they have because they don't necessarily are asking the question in the wrong way. So I'm a big fan of, I always call it, you know, I don't want people to come here with rose-colored glasses, right? I think it's really important that you set the expectations, you explain what the role is, you explain the good and the opportunity, but you also explain the bad and the challenges. And I think then you open it up and you let people ask questions, and you can get a pretty good understanding and feel for not only those two qualities, but also others. So that's how I've done it, and it's worked really well, I feel like. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good team.
I was gonna say, I love that you said like they need to be smart, but you define smart as like curious and ask questions, but with the caveat like retain that information.
And by the way, I think a lot of people, it's just you either lend yourself to like wanting to know how every single thing works, and sometimes it doesn't matter to other people, and that's okay. It's just that it's really hard to go into an environment and have to explain a very complex solution and understand exactly how it's going to fit and solve problems if you don't understand how the thing works, right? So you have to care about knowing how it is.
Yeah.
It's just how it's sort of part of the gig.
For sure. Well, I feel like you've dropped a lot of gems throughout the whole podcast. You shared like keep the important things, which I feel like we've either heard like Brian or Nick say. I don't know, that like rang a bell when you said it to me, or when you said it.
The most important thing is always the most important thing.
Is always, yeah, the most important thing. But do you have any other leadership advice that you've received that has really stuck with you throughout your career?
I think for me, there's been kind of some core tenets. I do like this idea, which was a really early tenet at Arctic Wolf, which was kind of bad news fast. And I think that's actually really important. I think it's just really critical to be as open and transparent as possible. That doesn't mean you can just be completely transparent. That doesn't work. So I think this idea of like bad news fast matters. I think transparency matters. And then I think you just have to care about the people. Like you have to actually want to see people get better and do better than you. And I've always felt like if I can hire people that are better at the job than me, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad thing. That is a good thing. And I think that's hard to do sometimes, especially if you feel like, are they going to take my job? No, you should hire the person that can take your job. I think that's the right thing you should do.
Now let's take a moment for our Well Wolf break and hear from one of our PAC members.
Hi there, my name is Jonathan Fedema and I am a technical trainer here at Arctic Wolf within the product organization. I am also one of Arctic Wolf's Well Wolf ambassadors, here to share a mental health and well-being tip for my fellow PAC members. Today's tip is particularly for my fellow PAC members who, like myself, work remotely, at least most of the time, if not fully. It can be a bit of a challenge. This is something I'm actually learning myself, to find ways to just separate work from your own personal space and your personal life, particularly when you are working from home. So My tip for you folks, something that I've been working on as well, is to really create that particular space where it is your workspace, even if it's just a corner of a room in your house, or it's just a desk that you have in one spot. Make that your workspace. Bring in your work stuff, bring in your Arctic Wolf swag, and have that in that area, and that area specifically, so that when you leave that area at the end of your day, it's that much easier to separate work from personal life and have that good, healthy balance. Something to tie in with that as well, if we are looking for a second tip, is of course staying physically active. This is something we can all be a bit better at. We work at jobs where we spend a lot of time sitting, so even just regularly getting up and taking a quick stretch. This is also something I'm not very good at, but I am working on it, especially now that we're getting cooler weather here in the Northern Hemisphere. Not quite winter, but definitely not as hot as it was. Great opportunities to go out for a quick walk here and there and stay healthy and happier that way. But that's your mental health and well-being tip for today. Back to you, Chelsea and Mary.
I mean, I feel like you've dropped, like Chelsea said, I've been taking so many notes. I'm like, this Lane, just all sorts of good nuggets here in this conversation.
Well, thank you.
Enjoyed it. So thank you. Before we get to the rapid fire that we always do to wrap our convos, we do want to ask you this question that we ask every single one of our guests, as we have this focus at Arctic Wolf on the well wolf and really seeing the well-being and strength of our pack move us forward. So what does well-being mean to you, and what does it look like to you?
Yeah, this is a complex topic, right? And for me, I have you ever have you ever read, probably not, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, there's a children's book called The Color Monster, and it's basically, it's basically about, in my mind, if you are able to identify your emotions, identify your feelings, and put them into the right categories and the right buckets versus them being all like munged together when you're trying to do things, I feel like that helps people and helps you understand when and how to react. It helps you understand like what you can and can't control, because feelings aren't bad. Feelings are good. The problem I see, at least in myself, is when they get into a spot and they're too munged together and you don't really even understand why you're feeling that way. That doesn't feel like very well to me. So I think this idea of being able to understand and identifying where your feelings are and where they need to be, that to me has been really important. And the Maslow hierarchy of needs, like depending on where you're at in that pyramid, will dictate sort of what those feelings are and where they should be. So well-being to me is knowing why I feel some way, knowing what my options are to maybe not feel that way or feel more of that way. And then executing it. And I think, that if that means that, we always talk about you have to have a work-life balance. That's not always true. Some people really, really love to work. Like that is their life. And you know what? As long as it's not unhealthy, that's okay. So I just think that we get stuck into it has to be one way or the other. I don't think that's true. I fundamentally believe that each person knows what's best for them. And if they don't know what's best for them, I would start there.
Yeah. Back to your whole thing of like clarity, like defining the outcomes so that you can actually achieve it. So
it helps.
Well, do you have an example of what that looks like practically for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it actually is work-life balance. So, it is. I mean, but if you look early in my career, I was totally fine working a lot and being my entire life around work and my coworkers, and they became my friends, and like that's just sort of the way it was. And as I've gotten married and have had children, that shifted, right? And for me, the last thing I want to do is be watching one of my boys play hockey or swimming or having fun and just constantly be stuck in work. So that's not well-being to me. So I think but that's really hard.
Yeah.
So you have to work at it, but in order to work at it, you have to know what you're working towards. And so for me, it really is, it does come down to actually like family and work-life balance, but that's new, right? That's like 5 years, 10 years for me. Previously, that was not the case.
Yeah. Well, I know you're not alone. We hear that from other guests and our colleagues and peers of like having their families and personal hobbies and priorities. So what does that look like for you, or what are some things that you've enacted that have helped you prioritize and keep both things that are important to you important?
I am a procrastinator. Like I have been my whole life. So one of the things for me is the priority list really matters. Like I have a list of 100 things at any given time that I need to do, want to do, have to get to, but I know I won't be able to do them all. And so I think it's important to know, like, these are the ones you have to do, are critical to do. These are the ones that are nice to potentially get through, and these are ones that can wait. And so I've really had to figure out how to prioritize that list of things on my plate to make sure, both on the personal side as well as the professional side, because sometimes you have to sacrifice on the personal side to make the professional, and sometimes you have to sacrifice on the professional to make the personal. And I think it all comes down to knowing what's a priority. Don't procrastinate if you can, right? Like, you should not procrastinate, except I still do it. I just do it in a way that doesn't mess things up, right? So that took time, though. I was the kid in high school that was like, oh, I better get that book report done. I haven't read the book and it's like 2 days away. It's like, oh boy, this is going to be really tough, right?
I'm stressed thinking about that. I'm getting anxiety in my body. I know the feeling, and I don't like the feeling.
That's funny. My wife is she was not a procrastinator for a long time, and I think she's kind of become more of one. But what's funny is I actually don't think procrastination is always a bad thing, because I do believe it puts the spark in you, and it makes you put the focus and energy sometimes in certain people to go do a better job.
100%. I totally agree. I think I'm not usually a procrastinator, but to your point, sometimes when I do, it's like, well, I have to do it now. And it's like, you focus all of your energy to your, like, I feel like I've been like really creative and thought of things that I maybe wouldn't have if I had like drawn it out, Right. So that is a really good point, Lane. It's not horrible, procrastination. Maybe don't do it all the time, but
you have to do it in the right spots. That's the key.
Yeah. And what was the name of the children's book? The Colorful Monster?
I think it's called The Color Monster. And it's basically just helping kids understand feelings. It's kind of like, that's why like the Inside Out movie is really good.
Yeah, that's what
but it's a little simpler, and it just basically helps kids understand that like there's different feelings and they fit into different spots. And anyway, it's a good book.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like it should be required reading for adults as well.
Yeah.
I think use some of that insight. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing some of your personal wellness and well-being insights. We are going to end the podcast with the rapid fire. So these are just first thing that comes to your head. No wrong answer, obviously.
Okay.
Best concert of your life?
So I'm not a big music person, but probably the first concert maybe, I think it was a Leonard Skinner ZZ Top when I was in I think I was in high school. That was a fun one.
Okay, your favorite word?
I like reality, but probably supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
I like the juxtaposition of your favorite word being reality and then you answering with a completely made up word.
Yep.
Okay. Love it. A place on your bucket list?
Probably like Scotland, Ireland, to golf, or the Masters. That'd be pretty fun. Either one of those would be.
Okay, what's something that people often get wrong about you?
Oh, I don't know if I have a good answer for this. Maybe my intensity in communication comes off sometimes as judgmental, but that's not actually what it is. It's more just wanting to understand and having the care and passion. I think that happens a lot. It's something I have to constantly work on. So it's like it feels like I'm maybe judging or pushing in the wrong spots, but it's not for a bad reason. It's not because I actually am. It's just the way I communicate sometimes. I don't know. That's probably the closest I get, because I don't hide a lot. I don't keep a lot of cards close to my vest, so I don't. Most people kind of know where they stand when they're hanging out with me.
Okay, last one. Give us a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that has brought you joy.
Almost all involves either, around kids. Like, I love watching my kids like light fireworks. I think that's really fun.
Is that an ordinary moment at the Roush household?
Yeah.
Well,
fireworks.
4th of July. It's ordinary every 4th of July. I would say for me personally, I would say I love stars. So like I don't study them. I don't know anything about them, but I do when I'm like outside somewhere, like either like up where my grandma and grandpa lived, or out in a spot that's super dark. I love looking up and just seeing the stars. I think I enjoy it a lot. It just kind of brings peace, but also fear. So it's kind of both.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's like the deep sea. It's
Don't
like
think too hard about it.
Yeah, you can't think too hard. Okay, well, you did it. Thank you so much, Lane, for being on the podcast. This was such a great episode. You were so easy to talk to, such a great storyteller. I mean, I also took so many notes. My thing looks like a hot mess, but yeah, thank you so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Lane. This was awesome. I'm excited for the pack to hear this. Okay, wow. What a great episode.
He was so easy to talk to. Like, I feel like I could have just been chatting with Lane for like 3 more hours.
Yes, I was like, I want to come to Lane's team meetings more often. There's some gems here.
Okay, not me also literally thinking like, how do I get on Lane's team? But like also bring my whole team, like Mary and everyone else. I don't want to leave the PX team. But I'm like, dang. I was telling
you. Don't love the HR team. Best HR pack out.
Yes. All of yes. Cut this out. No, I'm just joking. I love the HR team. I love Trisha's leadership, Kristen's leadership, the broader HR pack. But I also really love the way Lane thinks, and I felt really connected to his thought process and reasoning and all those things. But
I just want to go to his team meetings. I feel like there'd be some good wisdom and inspiration, encouragement shared there. Yeah, I wrote down so many things. I think if I had to pick just one takeaway I'm going to take from this, even though there's a lot, I think a really good reminder of like, you can't own the outcome if you don't know what the deliverables are, and how we had that thread throughout this entire conversation of clarity. And I think as I start this new chapter, I want to be really clear with myself of like, what are my goals and things and personally and professionally. So I love that. What about you?
Yeah, I think when he was talking about well-being and emotions and all the different emotions that we feel, and feelings aren't bad, it's exactly what you just said. Like, the through line has been like understanding like and having like a definition and reasoning of why you're feeling the way you're feeling. But I just like that really stood out to me, the way he worded it, which I'm not going to be able to paraphrase correctly right now, but just about like feelings aren't bad, but it's when you don't understand your feelings and they're starting to get like all jumbled up. That's when I think it can start to feel really hard. So as much as you can do to understand like why you're feeling how you're feeling, I think that'll just help you get through life a little easier. So that really stood out to me.
Well, also, I've never heard well-being defined that way. A very like cool way to think about it. Like, for me, it was the first time hearing it like that. So But speaking of well-being, if you are listening today and you can't see us, Chelsea and I are matching.
Woo woo.
But if you are watching, you'll be like, you aren't matching because the lighting in our rooms are so different. We look like we're wearing different colored t-shirts, but we're actually wearing the same mint green, heathered, soft, our favorite Bella Canvas t-shirt. But it's green and it has a beautiful wolf human image on the upper left side of it with our PAC Unity. Well, let's just double check. Yes. Mental Health and Wellbeing Alliance logo on the sleeve. These were designed by our Mental Health and Wellbeing Alliance. Specifically, we think Dave Shaw designed the logo. So shout out to Dave, or if not,
whomever.
Shout out to whoever you are. It's a great tee.
Yeah.
But this podcast comes out and October holds Mental Health Awareness Day, right?
Yep. World Mental Health Day.
World Mental Health Day.
I believe is October 10th. So yes, if you're not already in the Mental Health and Wellbeing Alliance Slack channel, that's a great place to join. And also there is a Confluence page for World Mental Health that has links to all of our WellWolf resources, our employee assistance program, kind of anything and everything well-being at the PAC.
So wherever you are listening, you matter. Take care of yourself. Reach out to the people you care about. You never know what people are going through. But we're repping these shirts today in honor of World Mental Health Day, and just a reminder to take care of your wellness, whatever that looks like for you.
And if you are at the PAC, we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month is also mid-September to mid-October, so we're in the midst of celebrating that right now. Lobos, our Hispanic and Latino PAC Unity Alliance, has done a great job of curating a month of fun festivities. So hopefully you're partaking in that. So yes, Hispanic Heritage Month. And then also for the first time globally, we're celebrating Oktoberfest as a little nod to our Germany PAC members. But of course here we're spelling it AWKTOBERFEST for Arctic Wolf, AW. So if you're in one of our offices, if you haven't already, I know there's a lot of fun being planned to celebrate Oktoberfest.
Lots of good things going on in the PAC.
Yes.
Busy month for all of us. With that, let's wrap this up. Thanks for
I was gonna jump in and help you, but I was like, she'll get there.
Sorry, I got a little distracted because I just saw that I had 4 missed calls in a row, so I panicked. And long story short, it looks like U-Haul changed my pickup location to Apple Valley. So then my brain was like, what? I have to drive to Apple Valley tomorrow morning? But anyways, I'm back on the podcast. Okay, what an exciting month to be running with the PAC. If you want to join us on our mission that Lane talked about, a really meaningful mission where you get to help people every single day and be part of the best community of people that we call the PAC.
An intrinsic...
Honestly, the
I was gonna make the joke an intrinsic mission, and I was hoping I was gonna say it correctly, and then I didn't. The mental block is still there. Wow.
The intrinsic mission. To do good. Come join us. www.arcticwolf.com/careers.
Okay, thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next month.